Gina Iafrate. I'm the author of this book, The English Professor. Writing was always my passion. Unfortunately, in order to make a living, I had to switch my life into business administration. But at my older stage in life, I am dedicating myself to writing, which I love. And I totally vanished once I started writing these novels. And 3-4 years ago, I went on a pilgrimage. And the pilgrimage took me from London to Rome and down to Sicily, and I've traveled quite a bit in my life, and here I came up with this, inspired to write this novel, The English Professor. And it's a beautiful story that leaves an impact in your heart. And it took me only 3 months, but it was at the publisher for 2 years. And finally, the finished product was released in 2015. And here it is, and I could read chapter 1 for you, if you like. Andrew felt completely drained of energy as he walked out of the old and stuffy university. Building another day of futile teaching had ended for him. Now he faced struggling through the hated subway to reach his flat in Bethnal. He glanced at the watch. It was 5 o'clock. The sun must have been behind the clouds, the gray clouds, all day. Shivering in discomfort, he felt the humidity penetrating his bones. His quilted blue trench coat didn't shelter his body from the cold. With his gloved hands, he pulled it closer to him, to his body, hoping for some comfort. He could hardly wait to get home, where he crashed for a couple of hours before attacking the paperwork. Editing was his second job. He arrived at his doorstep to find his mailbox overflowing. But before retrieving his mail, he had no idea what the rusted keyhole would hold for him. If he didn't hurry, old Mrs. Brooks from the next door apartment would start with the annoying questions. Sure enough, her squeaky door opened. "Hello, Professor. Did you have another grand day? It's been so quiet around here. I haven't seen a soul all day. Will you come in for a cup of tea?" The last thing Andrew wanted was tea with Mrs. Brooks. Although he did feel sorry for her, right now he just wanted to be alone. "Thanks, Mrs. Brooks. I'll have to take a rain check. Right now I have to deal with the darn keyhole." He continued juggling the key and turned his back on his neighbor. Finally, with a hand twist, he managed to make the key work. Andrew was having in the old southeast section of London, where the narrow row houses were cramped together. His apartment needed a facelift indoors and outdoors. But with Andrew being a procrastinator, nothing got fixed. As far as Andrew was concerned, it didn't matter. And repairs definitely weren't his priority. This was basically him, uncaring for any better existence. He was an intellect at heart. His literature, his books, and teaching were his passion. Andrew got to the door open, emptied this mailbox, and walked in. The smell of mold immediately hit his nostrils. He threw the mail onto the literate coffee table and reached for a can of air freshener. He didn't care if the chemical affected his lungs. Andrew was moody these days. He was easily irritated, and bouts of sadness darkened his soul. Since Gertrude left, his place was getting unbearable. He hoped, just maybe, that she might return, but it hadn't happened. Lately, Andrew was turning to alcohol for comfort. This is how he was choosing to ignore the disorder in his life. He filled his glass with scotch and soda. The settling down on his leather chair, he opened his mail. He knew that alcohol would soon take over, and relax his nerves for a while. Shaking his head, he thought, nothing exciting ever lands in my mailbox. Bills and more bills. Junk mail for the wastebasket. And as far for his editorial clients, some of them were so boring, he just wanted to throw their work into the wastebasket. But it took money to live in London. Andrew was miserable, and he didn't know when he wouldn't be hitting bottom. Little did he know, from this evening on, his life would take a new turn and change forever. He noticed a bright illustrated envelope among the rubbish. Promptly, he retrieved it and tore it open. Inside there were 6 spectacular postcards of Sicily. Andrew carefully scrutinized each and every one of them. The pictures were scenic and interesting. Who sent them? At the bottom of a card, he recognized the signature, Fabiana Taverna. Yes, she had been one of his students from a previous term. He remembered her well. She was very studious and wanted to improve her English. The Italian girl, pleasant and curious, had attended his class faithfully. She was an Italian reporter with a strong desire to improve her speaking skills in English. Andrew often praised her for her dedication and hard work to become fluent. She passed with well-deserved excellent marks. Now Fabiana, with her family, was extending him an invitation. How kind of them! A month-long stay on the island of Sicily? Fabiana's message was respectfully directed to Andrew. Dear Professor Robertson, my family, with myself, extend you an invitation to be our guest for the month of August at our residence in Palermo. We would be honored to have you. This invite is an appreciation of your diligent dedication and helping me when in London. We look forward to your reply. Sincerely, Fabiana and family. Andrew felt flattered. No one had ever repaid him or appreciated him with such a thoughtful gesture. This offer seemed to come at the right time. Yes, he was going to relate this to his students in class tomorrow. Some of them had been friendly with Fabiana. He would be proud to bring the cards to show them. This was the best offer he had ever received in his entire life. With that, he turned over the cards to observe the sights. He reread the note over and over to make sure this was not a mistake. By golly, he thought, this calls for another drink to celebrate. Andrew rose from his sofa in an elated mood and fixed himself another. Would he go? Of course. I will start counting the days. The winter had been dreary and long in London. Now, being the end of March, the continuous rainy and foggy days were depressing. It would be great to explore southern Italy for one whole month. The daily classes were getting to him regardless of his love for teaching. Sometimes his dedication seemed unrewarding. He admired the students from the countries. They were hungry for knowledge. They dedicated themselves to absorb everything with much interest. They motivated him to give more of himself. Some of the local students were taking much for granted. He could feel their lack of participation, and their disinterest showed in their eyes. As a result, Andrew had been feeling unrewarded in every which way. He picked up the lovely cards. They were exciting. He admired the panoramic view of Taormina, the Greek theater, the Blue Grotto, the ruins of Agrigento, Isola Bella, and Sicily itself to be a beautiful island separated by the mainland from Mare Jonio and the Mediterranean Sea. Just by observing these cards, Andrew's heart was racing with excitement. He went to bed for the first time in a long time, looking forward to tomorrow. He would go to a travel agent and inquire about a flight and immediately reply with his acceptance. He was free at this time in his life. Gertrude, his former girlfriend, wasn't any longer a part of his life. She had recently dumped him and left a high wound in his heart. He was approaching 50 and had never traveled much outside of London. This trip would be good for him. He was alone, without any family. He lost both parents a few years ago. They both died within a year of each other. They had lived in London. He used to visit with them often. Andrew grieved their loss for a long time. He had an older brother, Ian, who immigrated to Washington, D.C. Ian was married to a red-headed, freckled-faced Irish woman, and they had 4 children. After their parents passed, they hardly ever came to visit. Their excuses was that they could not afford taking trips abroad. They phoned occasionally. His brother never failed to lament how demanding his life was. Therefore, Andrew didn't want to impose on them. Their relationship was slowly becoming distant. Ironically, Ian never failed to make some smart remarks on their conversations. Andrew, you are the lucky one. Andrew hardly considered himself the lucky one. Sometimes he thought his brother was jealous of him for some strange reason. Andrew had inherited the flat from his parents because he was in London to look after them. He wondered what his brother was insinuating. Could it be that lousy flat he occupied, or because he didn't have any family responsibilities? One day he would ask him, but until then he felt Ian was the lucky one, with a wife and son and daughters to love him. As for himself, he felt no one cared if he lived or died. This gesture from Fabiana and the family meant a lot to him. Who knows, he thought. Maybe Sicily will be my salvation and bring me some luck. I am a free man, and I'm open for anything. He had to admit he had been in such poor spirit lately. Gertrude had hurt him badly. She had been uncaring and cruel with her announcement. It happened one evening when he got home from work. He was totally oblivious to her desire to leave. Andrew had arrived home earlier than usual and found Gertrude dressed to the nine. She was wearing a stunning red dress, revealing her well-shaped body. A side split exposed her bare long legs, accounted by the pewter high heels. Her makeup was impeccably applied, and her hair was pulled back in a chignon, propped on her head like a rooster. When she walked to the bar, he picked up the tray with the martini glass. She moved her rear end and hips like a teasing whore. He handed him the funnel-shaped glass with a red cherry floating in it. Andrew, she said. As she lifted her glass, a fancy bracelet glittered on her wrist. Strangely, she posed like an upper-class aristocrat. Andrew was confused. Was she gone all out to dress up for him? Is this a special evening that I have forgotten? He had to admit she looked appealing and provoking, teasing. She gave him a quick kiss and then spoke. Andrew, we are celebrating. Andrew felt uneasy. Her tone of voice sounded imperious. Darling, sit down. Let's have the drink to us. I have an announcement to make. Andrew took a sip and was going along, curious, puzzled, and waiting. Finally, Andrew, we are celebrating my freedom. Oh, freedom. From what, dear? Sarcastically she responded. From you, my darling. You and I are through. I'm leaving. I cannot bear to live in this dump anymore, and after 10 years our relationship has run its course. She continued bluntly with no regards for his feelings. I have met a younger fellow who is fun to be with. He is willing to adhere to my wishes and fulfillments. Therefore, I need to be moving on in my life. Andrew, completely stunned, continued to sip his drink. In that moment, he saw Gertrude like a bulldozer, crushing him. He felt rejected, like a piece of rubbish for the garbage. But he couldn't stop her. He was a placid man, set in his ways and contented in his usual routine. He asked himself, what is wrong with me? It didn't occur to him that his lack of ambition, plus the lack of desire to better his living status, was the main culprit. He was 6'2", his gray hairline had started to recede, and his eyes were sunken in from fatigue. Plus his pot belly wasn't exactly complimentary. Sitting there now, reflecting on Gertrude's episode, he decided it was time to renew himself, especially if he was going to go on this trip. Andrew was likable, but his monotonous lifestyle proved to be boring, and that was the reason he couldn't keep a partner. With all these assessments, Professor Andrew Robertson made a vow to himself. He needed to get his personal life in balance, and he then made a decision. All his future actions would be to improve his well-being. He walked to the full-length mirror to review his appearance. Am I still marketable? He had gotten into the habit of talking to himself. The following morning, he replied to Fabiana and accepted the family invitation without any hesitation. Next, improvement, both mentally and physically. After work, instead of rushing home to his flat and drinks, he detoured to a fitness center and requested to see a personal trainer. A tall, blonde, muscular young woman came out to greet him. She introduced herself with a strong handshake. Donna Smith, welcome to Bali Fitness Center. Andrew Robertson, he replied, extending his hand. Nice to meet you. What can I do for you, Andrew? I'm here for a complete assessment of my fitness level and overall health. Very well, Andrew, she gestured. Please step into my office. Andrew was a little taken aback. She portrayed an aura of assurance. She reminded him of Gertrude's personality. He did not find her attractive, but he had noticed she moved swiftly and looked fit. Donna asked him to take a seat in front of her desk. The room was a fair size, bright and sanitary. He noticed pictures of people pinned to the wall. They indicated the before and after results. Andrew, you need to fill out this form and sign it at the bottom. It's necessary for the assessment. She had handed him a questionnaire, and he quickly marked all the answers positively and handed it back to her. She glanced at his answers and stood up. Andrew, let's move over to the next room. Once there, he noticed all kinds of foreign apparatus that were unfamiliar to him. Andrew stepped onto this machine. His hands and feet were placed on a computer device electroscope. She sat in front of a screen reading his results with an obscure look on her face. Andrew, when was the last time you had a physical checkup? I must say it's been a long time. I can't recall the last time. I prefer to stay away from doctors. Okay, I know you're a teacher. What are you doing physically every day for your body? I walk to the subway every day. How long of a walk is that? 15 minutes each way. Andrew, you need to listen to me carefully. Besides being a personal trainer, I'm a medical doctor. and a certified alternative medicine practitioner. The fact is, you are 49 years old. Your body has the capacity and strength of a 75-year-old man. You have a high blood pressure, and I suspect diabetes. Plus, you're overweight with a sluggish gut creeping up on you. With that statement, she printed a sheet of paper and handed it to him while she continued. We can start the programs soon if you like. I suggest you verify my findings with your medical doctor, and we will proceed as soon as you are ready. Andrew stood up. He never expected this verdict, and the happiness that had been stimulated by Fabiana's card vanished. Dana put an arm on his shoulder and with a serious look on her face, warned him, "You need to go on high blood pressure pills immediately. With the sugar combination, you are a candidate for a stroke anytime soon." Andrew was scared. He never thought his health has deteriorated so badly. To his surprise, Dana's voice now sounded gentle and caring. "I don't want to scare you. I want to save you. You're still young and have a lot to live for. Come back as soon as you can, and I will be waiting for you. I promise you, with my knowledge and your cooperation, you will be a new man." All of a sudden, he felt down again. His life had taken a sinister twist. Both his parents had died from cardiac arrest. This was the result of his genes. It hadn't occurred to him before. Andrew wasted no time in calling his doctor. After a visit with him and extensive tests, sure enough, they confirmed Dana's prognosis and more. He was placed on a heavy dose of blood thinners and pills to stabilize his blood sugar level. Also, the doctor agreed a fitness program would be beneficial to his entire body, both physically and mentally. One thing was bothering Andrew. He asked, "Doctor, my libido has gone down the tubes. Do you think it is all related?" "Professor Andrew, I take it you're an intelligent man. In your state, eventually everything shuts down. You have some work ahead of you to rectify the situation. If you ignore it, I can't help you." He told the doctor about the plans for the trip. "Doctor, will I be okay to take this trip for a month?" "Andrew, get busy. The trip might motivate you. You are going in August, right? You have 5 months to get yourself rejuvenated and in good health. It will do you good." And with a half a smile, he said, "Between us men, those Italian women are pretty tempting. Make sure you take a box of condoms. Your libido should be up by then. One more thing, drop the hard alcohol. Replace it with red wine. You could have 2 5-ounce glasses a day. Good luck. I would like to see you back in a month. Call me should there be any complication with your medication." Andrew had a big job on his hand. He had neglected himself. Maybe Gertrude was right to leave. He had become a derelict, good for nothing. He knew the truth now. The anger in his soul needed to turn into forgiveness. He had himself to blame. It was his fault. He made a decision to go and see Dana the following day after school to work with her. Fabiana's invitation had been a godsend. He didn't have any time to waste. He needed to do what he had to do. To his surprise, after a couple of weeks of lifestyle changes and workout session with Dana, he started to feel better. Now he looked forward to what lay ahead, but he needed to do one more thing. It was necessary for him to brush up on his Italian. He wanted to communicate well. Therefore, he would have to take a refresher course. He had seen the course posted at the university. It was offered on Saturday morning, and one of his colleagues, Professor Arthur, was teaching. He signed himself up without any hesitation. Andrew found the classes pleasurable. The words rolled around his tongue like music. The verbs he emphasized with gusto. They were formed in the reverse order of the English language. He thought how English was much easier in comparison, yet how he loved those sounds when he practiced with his classmates. He felt so stimulated and couldn't wait to get to Italy and show off his language skills to Fabiana. Andrew was busy these days. He didn't have any time to sit and brood and drink away his sorrow. He was busy in his new life. His morals was lifting and he was happier. He often took time to engage in conversation with the people at the university. Once again, he had become aware of his surrounding and smiled more. One morning, he stepped on the scale and noticed his weight had gone down considerably. Looking in the mirror, he also noticed his gut wasn't protruding as much anymore. He had lost a considerable amount of fat, and his clothes had gotten baggy. Andrew decided it was time for new clothes, so he went to the Album Nottingham Menswear to find some classical clothes he liked. He liked to dress conservatively. Then he visited Norton and Son to buy fine shirts and merino wool vests. Next, shoes. Yes, he always did well at Harrods, shoe salon and boutique on Brandon Street. Andrew had gotten into the habit of wandering around the shopping district whenever he had a little time to spare. He wanted to buy everything new for his trip, and he was getting more excited by the day. He needed to upgrade his camera in order to capture all the scenes. After all, one could not afford to take trips of this caliber too often. Dana had been pushing Andrew pretty hard. He had been increasing his endurance in stages, and he cooperated well. His hard sweat brought great result. But Andrew was still worried about the results from his doctor. However, the news was good. At this last visit, the doctor changed his medication, put his hand on Andrew's shoulder and said, "You have been an excellent patient, Andrew. Your serious dedication has brought good result. Enjoy your trip."